Hello everyone, how are we all? Where are we? Oh, there's lots of you here waiting for me, that's lovely. Right, I'll just check that you can all hear me and see me okay. So, scroll to the bottom, there's lots of people here. I'll just wait for a thumbs up from someone, just to check you can hear me, although it looks like my microphone's working. Yep. Yep, Jean, is that a yep, you can hear me? Perfect. Thank you, Marion. Loud and clear, that's great. That's good. Okie doke. So who have we got with this? We've got Sue. Hi Sue. Hi Hazel. Hi Jill. Eileen. And Sandy. Hi Sandy, you're commenting on Facebook and watching on YouTube. Oh, very good. You're excellent at multitasking by the sounds of it, Sandy. I must admit, when I usually watch when I watch Lisa live on a Friday night, I'm usually cooking dinner. So I've got one headphone in, and then I've got Stephen chatting to me in the other ear as well. So almost doing three things at once. Hi Jackie. Hi Sue. Hi Lorraine. Hi Chris from a dull and chilly Suffolk. Oh dear. It's a bit much now, isn't it, Chris? We really do need to have summer or at least spring here. Fortunately, we've got sun today, but it's not as warm as it looks out the window. I had to wrap up warm and I took Hazel out for a walk this morning. Hi, Irina. Irina, that's a new name, so lovely to have you here. Okay, actually, we've got a few new names here. Let me look. We've got Susan Runson as well. I don't remember seeing your name before. Okie doke. Right, let me introduce myself then. There's a couple of new people with us. My name is Claire. I'm Claire Newcomb. I've been on Lisa's design team right from the very start, so I've been really lucky to see Lisa right through her journey so far to where she is today. So it's been really exciting seeing the development of these brand new products and sort of the new innovations there are in crafting these days. I always considered myself to be an inker and a stamper until Lisa brought these brand new layering stencils to the market and the inks, and I'm hooked, absolutely hooked. So anything with inks for me, and I'm absolutely happy to sit and craft. So yeah, my name is Claire Newcomb, so it's lovely to have you here today. I'm just going to change, because I've noticed, where are we? The QR code. So I'm going to put the QR code that's up there in the top left hand corner to Lisa's website. That's it, I've just changed that now, so I'm not going to be misleading anybody. Yeah, so I've been on the design team right from the very beginning. I've been doing lives for a long time now, probably 2, maybe even 3 years. So it's lovely to be able to bring you the demos and show you how these items work as well, and to give you new colour combinations when I'm using inks, and to give you sort of my spin on how these products can be used. So hopefully everything that I give you is totally adaptable for you to go ahead and put your spin on any of these ideas. So sometimes it's nice just to have a little reminder of new products that have been sitting in our craft stash for a little while, just to sort of revamp them, show you how they can work with a lot of the newer designs coming through, because I say a lot of, well, everything pretty much that Lisa brings out can all work together. And as we can all be accused of doing this, as we get new things come through, they get put to the top of the pile, so they're easier to take off. They're new, so they're exciting, so we use them first, but we tend to forget our old favourites that are sitting further back in our stash, and it's really nice to be able to bring them out and just use them with the newer bits as well. So hopefully that's what I can do as well. So, hi Mum, how are you? Hi Tom. I haven't had you join me in the live for a long time. Hope you're well. Hi Helen. and Debbie as well. Good few people. Just shared, hope my friend will be watching. Oh, who's your friend, Debbie? I'll keep an eye open for her, see if she comes in. So also my job in these lives with you is to just let you know of new things that are coming up. And as you know, Lisa has launched her Lisa's Pick that appears on the website every Monday morning. It's an offer that runs through all the way through the week, 7 days through till the following Sunday or until stocks last. It runs right up until Sunday midnight, 11:59 until Monday, sort of the new Monday dawns. And this week we've got an amazing offer on volume 1. So these are the very first inks that Lisa launched with us. It's a set of 10 inks. So volume 1 is the 10 inks, the 10 original inks that we use, and there are still favourites in there today that I keep reaching for. It's an amazing offer because if you go for this set this week, you'll also get all of the re-inkers for each of the inks. So that's 10 inks, 10 re-inkers, and you will get one of the ink holders as well. That keeps your ink pads, or 2 ink pads and 2 of the lids in place, so you're not chasing them all around your desk. So you can see the offer there. It's on offer for £79.90, and that's a saving of just under £55 actually. So it's a really, really good deal, and it's really worth getting the re-inkers alongside the inks, because say once you start using them, although the ink pads are really juicy in my experience that I've found, it's nice to have the re-inkers come in, and there are techniques that you can do with just the re-inkers as well, and that's probably something that I can revisit in future lives just to show you how you can use the re-inkers. And I know it's something that Lisa has shown you on a fair few videos and on her lives as well, if you want to look those up on YouTube. So you can see the offer there. That will be on the front page of Lisa's website, and it's so easy to find. All you need to do is just click on that picture on the front of Lisa's website, and it will take you to the page where you can do all your buying. So that's perfect. I have my ink pads here and I'm using them today. So it's a set of 10 subsequent releases. So releases 2 and 3, there are 12 ink pads. But just initially for this volume 1, these are the very first pads that Lisa launched. There are 10 of them, and it's a complete set. You have all the colours you need really to get you started. So it's a really good starter set. So the colours I'm using today, if you know me, I always use Woodland moss. I always come back to that. But it's not my fault this week. These inks are on offer, so I'm forced to use Woodland moss again this week. But it's such a versatile green, as you can see here, and you can make it as dark or as light as you want, but it's perfect for all the foliage. So you have your pinks, you have your sugar candy, you have the strawberry sundae as well. You have these wonderful blues, which are amazing. And Deep Ocean is one of Lisa's favourites. So you have Surf's Up and Deep Ocean. They pair really well together. You have Tranquil Waters, which is a gorgeous turquoisey colour, but can also blend really nicely with the blues. You have a Spiced Plum, and you have Early Sunrise. You have pretty much everything, plus the fact that you can do your colour blending as well to then get other colours, of course. So I'm just going to put these aside now, because I'm just I'm just going to put them there actually, because I'm on the card that I'm making. I actually used the yellow, but I might change actually. I might just, so I don't make the same card twice, I might change the colour a little bit. I might go for the Spiced Plum. So what I want to show you today, obviously I'm going to go through the stenciling of the Cosmos border, because I enjoy stenciling. This one, perhaps one of my favourite sets, but I just wanted to show you how we can create a different background. And you can see here I haven't actually attached any of this down, but what I wanted to do is use 2 embossing folders. I wanted to use the A6 Mechanical Rivets embossing folder and the Garden Greenery. Now, if you were to try this at home, this technique, what I would urge you to do is use mechanical rivets if you have it. And I've chosen this one mainly because we have lots of areas, open areas here, that I wanted to then re-emboss or double emboss with another design. So I've chosen the garden greenery because I thought these leaves would look really nice in these open areas. But you can substitute the garden greenery for any other embossing folder with quite a dense pattern. So I was going to pull a few out actually. So maybe you could substitute the garden greenery for the checked shirt. Maybe you could use the tiny stars. It depends what you have in your stash really, but what you can see that I'm doing is just choosing really small compact designs which will then show really nicely and emboss each of these open areas on the mechanical rivets. Now, if you don't have the mechanical rivets, what you could do is choose another embossing folder that has open designs in it. And if you see what I mean about the open designs, it's these sort of areas here that you can add another design into. Now, you could stamp into them. That would be one way of doing it. Or, as I say, I want to show you how we double emboss. And it may seem a little bit sort of counterintuitive to what we're trying, what Lisa does for us. I mean, she gives us this beautiful 3D embossing. And what we're going to do, we're going to emboss this, double emboss with that. So this is going to be flattened, as it were, and overtaken by the rivets here. But what it does, it gives you such a subtle background detail that it's just something different, isn't it? And the embossing of these folders is so strong, so 3D, that when you run this back through the embossing machine again, that pattern stays. Although it's flattened, the pattern, the quality of the folders is so good that you are still able to keep that design. So I want to show you that closest, and what I might do, just so as we stay in focus, I'm just going to bring that closer and just try and angle that. Can you see in the background here that we still do have the greenery in amongst the mechanical rivets? So what I'll show you how we do this. That's probably the easiest thing, as opposed to chatting to this, and then I can talk you through how we do the rest of the card in a bit. So all this is doing is just giving you another option onto how, you know, how to use your folders. Both folders work perfectly and are brilliant as standalones as well. But you say, it's as being here as a sort of design team member, it's sort of trying to give you more ideas, trying to get you more out of your stash, you know, trying to give you different ways of using things really. So what I'm doing, I'm actually using like a grey cardstock. It's more of a light grey, like beigey sort of colour. You can use white, but that's what I was feeling today when I was doing this. So I'm taking the Garden Greenery embossing folder. Now this one is a 5x7 folder. So because I'm going on to emboss with an A6 folder, I've cut my cardstock down to A6. But of course, that means that this can be embossed really easily in any folder that's larger. So there's a couple of ways of doing this. I've actually added ink onto this one here, so I might actually do that to bring out the design to help you see that more. You don't have to do this extra ink in if you don't want to. Now, when you do ink your embossing folder, you need to sort of make sure that you're putting the ink on the right side. Otherwise, you're going to lose the effect. So I want to have the ink on the emboss side. So I want this side to be raised, which means that I need to put my card with the design on top that is recessed into the folder. So what we need to do, I just have to think about that. So I'm putting my embossing folder down onto the put a bit of card there so you can see it. There you go. So I'm putting the embossing folder down. So what is on the bottom here on the folder, this part of the design is raised. So when you run your finger over the top of this, you will feel the raised section. So when we put this cardstock in like so, we're going to get the deboss on the top. Now this is going to be the underside of the card, which means this is going to be the top. So this is where we want to put the ink. So I'm only going to put a really light layer of ink. So I'm going to take my Woodland Moss, and initially I'm just going to just run that smoothly with very little pressure actually. I don't want to really push the ink into the design. So I just want that ink to sit on the raised areas of the embossing folder. And then I'm just going, just to make sure that this is even, just gently with the brush, I'm just going to sort of diffuse that across the top of the folder like so. And this again is no pressure. So I'm not adding any extra ink into the design. I don't necessarily need it to be even all over, because say this is just going to be a background. So I'm just going to sort of diffuse that ink out a little bit, and you can see as I was working that ink now looks softer on there. So I'm going to put my cardstock in. You can see where the ink is sitting. I'm just going to run this through the embossing machine now. Okay, so when I come back here, you'll see that we have that lovely embossed design that's been highlighted because the background is now in green and the leaves are actually popping out. So that is a really nice, I mean, you can use the background as it is like this. And say all the way along, you can stop at any stage if you prefer the look of what you're creating, but I will sort of continue on and to show you the full effect. Now, I will also show you that although there is ink on the embossing folder, all of these inks are water reactive, which means that they clean from any of the materials, that either the stencils or the embossing folders, they clean so easy. So you just spray water on, use a microfiber cloth, mainly because it's sort of reusable tissue or anything. And now we have our embossing folder ready to go again. Do remember to clean it, because otherwise you'll get a bit of a surprise next time. So say that in itself is really pretty as it is. But what we're going to do, we are going to now emboss this with the mechanical rivets. And again, we want to make sure that we have the right effect on the top of the design here. I mean, that's the deboss of the design, and it would work equally with the deboss, but we've added the ink on the front, so this is sort of where we'll go with. Again, you want to feel where the emboss, so on the bottom of the folder, or the bottom of the folder should be where the design feels embossed. So that is where you lay your card on top. Now this looks so strange, and I did wonder initially when I first tried this, would this work? But yeah, it does. Basically, I just try, you know, this all came about from me playing and experimenting and seeing where we go. So I'm showing you now, and I'll emboss this to show you that, you know, there's no trickery going on here. But what I wanted to do really is just create a tiled effect, but with a little bit of pattern on the inside. I mean, what you could do, you could use a patterned cardstock and emboss the mechanical rivets over sort of patterned paper. That would also work as well. But we have lots of designs here which we can create our own sort of pattern paper with, which is where, you know, why I wanted to go ahead with that. And if I take that out there now and just, yeah, bring that to you, you can see that the mechanical rivets are actually showing through, and that is the predominant pattern that is sitting on there now. And the garden greenery is going into the background. And I think why I wanted to do this is because I wanted to create a slightly different background, because you see the effect that I've got here. And I'll just move you out. Oh, there we are. Moved you even further in so you can actually see that. Yes, there we are. Excuse my thumb. There we are. It's a really nice effect. And if I turn it over, you can still see the effect on the background also. It's a lot more subtle, but if this is at the side of the mechanical rivets that you prefer, where the actual squares are embossed, or the edge of the squares are embossed, you can still see that pattern in the background. I think it's just a really nice way of creating. Oh, there we are. Create a bit of a shadow there, and you can see. It's so hard to get these details to you on screen, and say I really can't urge you enough to give it a go at home so you can actually see the effects firsthand. So I'm going to come out now. Now, if you're looking at the card here, you can start seeing, or maybe you can start guessing how I've created this background. Because yes, you can absolutely use this as it is. But what I thought would be a really nice idea, just to bring the detail out, I'm just going to trim around the edge. So we just have the embossed squares. Normally I would like to keep that border around the outside, but it's not needed for this particular design. So yeah, we'll just trim that down. I'm going to say this just came about just by looking at the embossing folder, really. And what we can start doing, we can take ourselves a pair of scissors. And I would perhaps suggest that scissors are the best bet for this, because what we're going to do, we're actually going to cut along each of these panels and make each of these panels a separate entity. And scissors would, you know, are easier to do this, because otherwise you may find with a trimmer you won't always be able to go straight across, and you'll be cutting into some of the squares. Now, when we do this, what also we want to make sure that we do is keep each of these panels in the same order as the original design, because we know that it's going to go back in exactly the same way. Now, I have on this one cut every single panel and made every single panel individual. I think what I might do this time around, because we don't have, you won't want to see me do the whole lot, I might just take these in sections. So I'll have less sections to glue back together in the background, but you'll still see the effect of what it is that I'm doing. So now if you were to do this, which way around did that go? There we are. I'm going to make sure I put them back down in the same order as I cut them. Now, if you were to do this, it doesn't mean then that you had to use all, you could start again, Claire. If you were to do this, it doesn't mean that you have to use the entire panel. If you wanted, you could just use one of the panels that you cut out and use that as a section on your background. So what am I going to do? I think possibly another reason why I thought was this. I do like to sew, and I have a bit of a patchwork quilt background as well, you see. So I was just wondering, you know, different ways of actually putting paper together. And patchwork quilting can then lead into sort of thinking about paper piecing. I can't talk today. Paper piecing, which is something that I might cover in my lives next week, actually, because I know there's been some chat with various designs that Lisa's brought out that people have asked about how you actually paper piece. So I was looking at some of the dies that we have, and I may actually do some paper piecing for you next week. So this is how my sort of brain went on, really. And I thought, well, that's going to be quite an involved live. So I'll do that next week when I have 2 lives with you. So then I can do some paper piecing with you one day, and then I'll use exactly the same dies to create something different and the next day. Yeah, so that was where my mind was going. So I obviously had that sort of design in my head when I was preparing today's live. So this is how we got to sort of piecing these together. Now, right, I'm going to make sure we put these back in the right way now, because I've moved them, haven't I? I was chatting to you. Actually, I'm upside down. That's what I need to do. That goes there, that goes there. That one goes in there. There we are. Then we have that square there. Okay, so yeah, it's important. I lost my train of thought then when I was chatting to you. So yeah, when you start cutting this up, try and keep track of where they all go, because then you know that you'll be able to actually put these back together. And then what you can start doing, you can start gluing these back together, back onto a backing paper of your choice, actually. And it's quite nice to I'm using something darker, so I'm using this craft card, but you could go onto black, you could go onto a real contrast color, and I think it would make it a really nice way to make a card for the guys as well. I mean, there's lots of different things you can do with this type of embossing folder. You can use gilding waxes onto black cardstock to really bring the design out. So yeah, there's lots of different ways you can use this, and this is just one of those designs. So this is ideal, a card for the guys if you were to use different colors, but equally it would work for anybody. I mean, I'd be more than happy receiving a card like this. And you can see all I'm doing is just really simply using some glue. I'll try to get this done quickly for you. As I say, and there's a lot more panels here that I could have separated out for you, actually. And when I had the time earlier on, that's what I was able to do there. You can choose how wide you keep the borders in between. Again, you could use this technique to really extend this design into a square design and put this onto a square card or a larger card. But equally, you could probably take away some of these panels and use it on a smaller card as well, or just use some of these panels individually on their own. There'd be a really nice background for a little individual flower, die cut flowers as well, I think. So you can see how quickly actually that comes back together to give you like a deconstructed design there. And you'll notice actually what I've done, I haven't cut this backing cardstock until I've put all of the pieces back together. You could limit yourself actually and cut this layered section first, so you know the area that you need to work into. Obviously it's an A6 folder, and if you were to relayer all these back together, then it's going to be slightly larger than the A6 size. I was rushing a little bit there, so some of my placement's gone a little bit out of sync there, but so if you have plenty of time, you'd be able to do that. But you can see how that technique works and how this background can come together. And you can see that the pattern on this one is actually far more pronounced on here than on this card. Now, the one that I actually tried was testing this out on. What I'd done also as well, I didn't ink the garden greenery folder for the background, but what I did do, I inked the mechanical rivets folder. So I've made sure that I've got the right side of the embossing folder, and I inked in black the, there we are. Oh, you need to be able to see. Let me use that. Okay. So I inked the top of the embossing folder, so we only then had ink in between each of the squares. So I thought that was a really nice way to highlight each of the squares also. So there we have our background. So that's, so it's just a really nice way to create a background, and you can see that by using any of the embossing folders with a smaller design, how well that they'd fit into each of these little sections. But again, it's just have a play and just have an experiment and see. Oh, wrong way. And make sure we've got a full screen now. There we are. Yeah, so have a play and just see what you have in your stash and see what works for you. And so you don't know until you try, really. And sometimes it's a really nice way just to create something different. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to put up that slide for you, because this is everything that we're using. So now we're going to do our stenciling, and I've chosen the Cosmos border to stencil with. Now again, any of the designs, floral designs, can go on top of this. It's a really nice background just to die cut a sentiment and add to the front also. You could just add something really simply across the front of the card, like so, and then you'd be away. You know, it's such a useful background to have. But of course, I couldn't pass up the opportunity to do a little bit of stenciling. So I'm using the Cosmos border there. So it's one of my favourites. It's been around for quite a while actually, but it's one that I always like to go back to. And I'm actually stenciling this onto a grey card again. It's really pale, so it really shows up all the colours of the inks that we're using, just as well as I would be on white. But it just adds a little, you know, it just sort of tones it down just slightly. And sometimes it's nice just to not have the starkness of a white card. Although I really love the crisp white card, you know. I know definitely, you know, definitely use that no end, but sometimes you just want to do something a little bit different, don't you? So the three colours that I'm using today, Woodland Moss, Cobblestones for a little bit of shading. Now, what I was using was the Juicy Pineapple to create this colour here. But I think what I might do, I might actually use Spice Plum this time round. Shall I use Spice Plum or Early Sunrise? What do we think? What do we think? Oh, hi Tina, how are you? Hi Katie, no worries. Button Fair. Hello to you all. Right, quick choice for you. Shall I use purple or shall I use the orange? Or the pink or the red, actually. Which colour? What colour shall I go for? Because I tried to make up my mind this morning and I couldn't. So let's have a see. What do you all think? Okay, Lee. What do you think? What should we go for? Orange. I shall go for orange. Okay, so we've got Early Sunrise, which is... There we are. That would look really nice, actually. Looks nice with the green, won't it? So Early Sunrise is what I'm going for this time. So it'll be nice to see a difference to the yellow. So I'm going to start off with the Woodland Moss on the first stencil. Actually, on this set, if you're interested, we have 6 stencils. And the first ones generally are the floral, the foliage stencils that we put down first. So I'm using my large stubby brush, which I really love these brushes actually. They're a good cross between the blending brush, which can sometimes be a little bit, not a little bit too big. You don't necessarily need to use that. But it puts down, these stubby brushes put down a lot of ink quite quickly as well, which is one of the reasons why I use the blending brush actually, if I've got a large area to cover. So you can see really quickly that we can get that woodland moss down on our foliage quite straightforward. So as always, the areas of the stencil that are going to be closest to the flower or in the centre, I'm going to put the most ink there. So that means the edge of the leaves are going to be a little bit lighter. So when I take the stencil away, there will be a really nice sort of graduated shading. Also, just before I move this stencil, I'm going to come in with the cobblestones and just tip a little bit of the grey into this first area of the foliage, the area that would be closest to the flower, just to add that little bit more shading. So the cobblestones in volume 1 or release 1 of these inks that are on offer, it is so useful as a colour to add shading. It's a brilliant colour to use on its own, but it adds an awful lot of shade as well. And it can be added to any of the colours. So you can see there the graduated shading. So we come in with stencil 2. Now what I wanted to do with these little flowers that sit behind the main flower, I'm just going to have these sort of blend into the background. So I'm going to treat them as if they're going to be like a white flower. So what I'm going to do, I'm using the woodland moss and just a little bit of ink, and all I'm doing, I'm just tipping that ink just over that stencil edge. Now, probably more ink than I would normally use for this technique, but you will see in a second that the majority of that aperture is staying white. Let's just bring you in a little bit, shall I? There we are. Yeah, you can just see just how that dark edge just around the edge of that aperture there. And that means that this is going to sort of hint at these particular flowers being white, or certainly a lot paler than the rest of them. So when I take that away, you can see that they're there, but they've sort of taken on the hue of everything else around them. It will become more apparent as we start stenciling everything else. So now we have this larger flower here. So I shall get the early sunrise. And again, I'm just sort of going to tip the colour into the edge. So I really like the idea of sort of having these white flowers on cards. But it doesn't mean that you need to use a white ink, and it doesn't mean that you don't add colour. So again, what I'm doing, I'm just tipping the colour just over the edge of the aperture there, and leaving the majority of that flower not white, but just unstenciled, I suppose, if that's the way you want to add it. And it's a really nice technique. Possibly not one if you really like bold colours, but you know, again, it's just showing you different techniques. I mean, I can stencil this again, and I have used this stencil in many different ways and added different amounts of colour into the flowers, but we do want our stencil to work really hard for us. So the more different looks that we can get from just one stencil, the more use it's going to be, isn't it, really? We're going to really get our money's worth out of them. So these buds around the outside, I'm going to treat in exactly the same way. I'm going to tip the orange. Actually, I'm going to use a smaller brush and make it a lot easier on these smaller areas. I'm going to tip a good amount of colour into the bottom of the bud there, and just take off a a small amount of the orange just around the outside, because then that will just add the suggestion of how big that bud is. So I'm going to make sure I go quite heavy on the base of the bud and just work around with whatever's left on my brush around the top of the bud there. And I'm going to do that on all of these. Now you could treat all of these flowers as a different colour, and if you look at the packaging from Lisa here, you know, there's like 2 different colours of flowers there, which again is a gorgeous way to use the stencil as well. But yeah, people see different things in different ways, don't they, on the stencils. So I'm just going to add that colour there. So when I take that away, you can just see the suggestion of where the outside of these flowers are. But it's really subtle. So when we come in with the next stencil, which is going to give you the detail on the flowers, I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to use a small brush, but work from the centre, and again just tip that colour from the centre outwards. So we're going to get a really nice sort of diffused area from the centre of the flower outwards. And just really gently just work to where the rest of that other detail is, because obviously we want to see that that is there. And you'll be surprised that when you don't think you're actually putting any ink down from your brush, more ink is sort of going down than you realise. So when I take this away in a second, you will see a suggestion of this detail here. And I shall do the same with the buds. Now, if you look closely at this stencil here, we have detail that is going onto the base of the buds, like the green part of the bud, and also onto the floral part of the bud. And what you can do actually, and it's worth then really making use of your tools, of your stencil brushes, your small stencil brushes, because what I'm going to do, I'll cut in now. And shall I just come in again? You don't necessarily need to see the ink that I'm picking up, do you? But to see the detail that I'm stenciling. There you go. There we are. So you can see that we have detailing on the flower part of the bud and also on the green part of the bud. So use your stencil brushes, and the fact they are so small. So put the detail onto the green part of the bud with your green stencil brush. And then put the detail onto the flower part of the bud with your orange. And this will give you really, really nice results. And I can guarantee that if you would do that and you just wanted to elevate your stenciling just a little bit, that sort of attention to detail is just, say, it doesn't immediately jump out at you, and it's very small detail, but it makes a huge difference. Now, these flowers here, if you remember around the outside, I was treating as a white flower. So I'm going to add that extra detail with the green there. I don't need to add the extra colour. So we do sort of want these to sort of blend into the background, just for this design. So normally, Lisa's added them in purple on the main stencil. But just for this design, I think we'll have those as subtle as. So when I take that away, let's just move that in a little bit. You can really see that detail, and you can see the detail there. We've added a small amount of ink, but really that flower has stayed as a white flower. That's sort of how I would consider that. There we are. Looks really nice in orange, actually, Mum, doesn't it? Good choice, I'd say. So now we have this stencil, which is going to add the centre of the flower. So I'm just going to have a quick look. On the flower that I've done here, I actually used green for the centre of that one. Actually, do you know what? I think I might do the same. Might just do the same. So I'm going to add green. Not too much, so I'm not going to make it too bold. So I'm just really using the ink that's left over on the brush, but it will be enough. when I take this away, it would be enough to make an impact. So I'm just adding the colour onto there. I'd say I've really not picked up any more ink, and a little bit tricky for you to see on there, but then I can definitely see that there's plenty of ink going down there. There we are. You can see that that's coloured in. Now we can add the detail on that with our last stencil, stencil 6. And I'll use the green again, and this is when I can come in that little bit heavier just to add that sort of speckled detail. And might just swap to a smaller brush for these smaller ones here. There we are. Okie doke. So it comes together really, really quickly. It's such a delicate and sort of detailed design, this one, but you really do get through the stencils really quite quick. And if you notice again, I'm using the tacky mat here, so I know that my my cardstock hasn't gone anywhere. And that has come out really, really nice. So it's quite subtle, but I think the whole feel of the card is quite a subtle feel. I really like the shape of that as well. There's so many ways that you can use that. So what we can do is we can use our die. Oh, packaging everywhere. We have our die and we have our embossing folder. So it's very easy to line this up, to die cut. And I'll just get a little bit of tape, so, oh, not that one. Tiny bit of tape, but that'll do. So I'm just going to line this up. There we are. So we can die cut this out. This is one of those designs actually that it looks fabulous when it's stenciled like that, but it looks so much better once it's embossed. So we can just die cut that. It only takes one pass with the folder. So look how pretty that is. Actually, that is gorgeous. That would work really well on Lisa's packaging, wouldn't it? With the greens and the yellows. Actually, if you have the polka dot embossing folder from a little while ago onto a green cardstock, that would work really well as well, wouldn't it? Just look at it like that, yeah. So green is definitely the way to go. So now we can emboss. Now it's easy to line up. And again, for those of you who are new, if you have a few troubles lining up your die cut design to emboss, I don't hold the back of my embossing folder initially. I just concentrate on the front of the embossing folder and my die cut, and I get that into position in a place that I'm absolutely happy with. And that is a lot easier to do when you're not worrying about the back of the cardstock, because you've got use of your hands to line up the two designs together. Then when you are happy that you're lined up the best that you can, keep one hand holding the front of the embossing folder and your die cut on the inside, close, then with the other hand close the embossing folder and grab all three layers and remove one hand. So at any one time you've always got a hand clasping either the die cut and two embossing folder layers, or the die cut and one embossing folder layer. Then you know that when you can put that through and that's clamped into your die cutter machine, that's going to be perfect. So we can just put that through. Move that out of the way. And actually, I'm looking forward to seeing this embossed. That orange has worked out really nice. I'm just going to put the ink on there. Okie doke. So when we open this up like so, somehow it makes the ink colour pop even more when it's embossed. I don't know how, but it still amazes me even now. And you can see that it's really nice that we've kept these ones subtle in the background. I think for this sort of technique, it really works. You could do 2 of these actually and have these back to back. Actually, if I show you, I'd cut into this one, but you could do cut back to back like that and put that onto a card. Now this is me. Oh. Now that's me going off on a tangent again, isn't it? So let me put this against the card base. This isn't the card that I'm making at all, but let's give it a try. You can cut 2 of these designs like so, and then you could have your sentiment running through the middle, couldn't you? And how pretty would that look? That would look gorgeous as well, wouldn't it? If you were to do these both the same colour. Yeah, anyway, we're going off on a tangent there. Let's finish the card that I'm doing. Okay. So I've got my card blank. So it's 5x7 card actually I'm making. And all I've done is just added some craft card to the front of that. Then I have the layer that we created earlier on. I'm going to mount that onto some green as well. Now I didn't pre-cut the green layer because I wasn't quite sure the size of this layer that I was making. But I can do that now. So create a little border like so. This is how I make my cards. Sort of not much measuring goes in, to be fair. A lot of it is done by eye. So I always make sure that I sort of by eye I mount that into a fairly square corner, and then I know that I can cut my matten layer like so on my guillotine, and that works. You could of course use one of the nesting dies. So we have that sitting on there. Now I know I did go a little bit sort of skew with here, but I don't honestly think that matters too much, because what we can do, we can take our die cut and we can have that sit across the corner like that, which means that we need to just trim off this part of the die. Let me just see. So I think I'm going to trim around this flower this time. Now don't be frightened to trim into your dies. And if you do it just right, it means you don't have to then discard what you've taken off. You can just use it either elsewhere. You can either use it on the same card or pop it in the storage envelope there and use it another time. But what I'm going to do is just trim off that bit of foliage like so. And I'm just using the shape of the design there. So I went round the flower. So I've got this extra bit of foliage there. So that can sit really nicely there. I've die cut my sentiment. So I've cut the word happy from the squiggled script sentiments. I've cut that in green and just backed that onto the craft cardstock, and you get both dies for the word in that set. I've stamped happy birthday from the sentiment strips, the everyday sentiment strips. So happy birthday, and I've stamped that just in black directly onto craft card. And let me just raise it up, and you can see that is, can you see that? Just about very readable. I shall zoom you in on that in a second. Now, I appreciate that we've got happy birthday. So there's a couple of ways you can do this. You can trim into this. So we've just got the word birthday. You can use Lisa's stickers if you have any of those left from before. So we can have happy birthday like so, which I think I might do for this time round. So we can just rearrange that on there, and then we can use our little bit of foliage. We can either put the foliage so it continues up the corner that way, we can put that and sit that either on that area of the card, or we can have that sitting under the happy and go up that way. We can have that coming out this way. You know, there's various different options for that. Actually, I might just put that there, so we have that happy nestling in amongst the foliage there. So I think that works really nicely. So there's two different cards. They look quite different in the yellow, actually. So we have the yellow there. We could also just put the happy birthday on like so. I think that would even work that way as well. So there we are. I do have small scissors. I know, I always reach for them larger ones, don't I? I'm actually quite safe with the larger ones. It's not until I get cooking in the kitchen after this that then I become a danger to myself, and then that's when I chop my thumb. But I'm actually quite safe with those large scissors, surprisingly enough. So there we are. We have a different way to actually create embossed backgrounds there. It's a little bit in goes against intuition, really. We have fabulous 3D embossing folders, which we rely on squashing the design down. But when it's paired with another design, I think it works really well and just adds a lot of texture. It might actually, if you give you the opportunity to use the mechanical rivets that you have in the background, I mean, that is brilliant for men's cards, absolutely is. But if you want to sort of utilise that a little bit more, you know, for using other than men's cards, you can use it in this way. You don't necessarily have to emboss it. You can just deconstruct it and use it in this way and tile it as well. So it just gives you different ways to use those designs, and it's a really nice effect, a really nice effect. So if we can bring those in as well. So who would have known that we could actually use the mechanical rivets with such pretty floral detail as well. Yeah, I'm just really happy with the way that's come together. And even if you use some not quite as subtle colours and you went really bold, I think that would work perfectly. But I think it just looks really nice against the craft card. So thanks so much for joining me this afternoon. Oh, who's this? Sandy Scott. Got your comment up on screen. I don't know how I've done that. There we are. There we go. Yeah, thanks so much for joining me this afternoon. What I'll do, I'll get these cards photographed and put them in the group for you, and then I'll post the link to the video a little bit later on. Just one live from me this week, so I'll be back with you next week for 2. If in the meantime there's anything that you do want me to have a go at, either shaped cards or particular sets that you haven't used in a while, I'll see if I have them available, and then I can give them a go for you as well. Say these lives are for you to learn as well as just as much as for me to play as well. So thanks so much for your company. Don't forget to join Lisa on Create and Craft on Friday. I think times are due to be released soon, so it's going to be a stunning show. Enjoy the rest of your week, everyone. Take care.